Hello, my name is Brody McGowan, and this is Ryan Patterson, my colleague over here. And today we are on our first ever full-length episode of the For the Fans podcast. Today we welcome in a special guest today. His name is Mac Earn, and he is a New York Jets fan. What is going on, Mac? How are you doing?
Not much. I'm good. How are you?
Okay, that's really good to talk about. So I heard that you are a New York Jets fan. I just have to ask,
It's unfortunately true.
how did you get into becoming a Jets fan?
My dad was a Jets fan. He's been a Jets fan since he was in college, and I kind of just followed his footsteps. I watched games with him when I was younger, and kind of just it's where we at now.
Yeah, no, I can't relate to that, but I'm pretty certain Ryan can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a similar story for me. Me, and my dad, my dad had season tickets until he married my mom, so, you know how it changes once you get married, but, yeah, that's kind of just what made me a Jets fan, is my dad.
So I guess I'll ask you the basic question. What do you guys think about this year's season so far? I mean, you guys hired the new coach, you guys have the new quarterback, but as a whole, the real question is this a success? Is this a failure? Because I know to many Jets fans it's been a struggle, and this season looks that way. But do you see them building to something, or do you think that this season is just another letdown?
Well, I would just say that, we, as Jets fans, we don't really have really high expectations, every year. But this year, with a new coach, a lot of young players, I kind of expected things, there to be, some bumps on the road. But I kind of expected a little bit better than what we're getting. Maybe, 5 wins at this point would be something that I would like more. But, now it's just getting killed. We have the lowest, point differential in the league. It's minus 170 at this point. It's just something that when we're trying to build something and rebuild this team, we're just trying to see results, and we're really not seeing many.
Mac, do you agree?
I agree for the most part. I would say there's a couple players like Michael Carter on offense and Elijah Moore that are playing pretty well. But aside from that, I really wasn't expecting much. I wouldn't say it's a success or a disappointment. It's kind of just I wasn't expecting them to do that much this year. But I guess maybe a couple more wins is what I was expecting. But it's not really a disappointment or a success, because as a Jets fan, I'm kind of used to this stuff.
Yeah, I just think that, the Jets, their media team does a good job just hyping up.
Yeah, all gas, no brakes.
And they just hype up the season like we're going to be some great team. And then we just don't put in, all that hype and all that, on the football field. We just don't, we never, get to that, point where they're oh yeah, we're really excited, put out all these hype videos. And we're and once week 1 kicks in and we get killed, it's all the hype is gone.
Yeah, I mean, the three wins this year, I think that one against the Bengals and the one against the Titans, those have got to be flukes.
Yeah.
And then the one against the Texans is just an overall really crappy game from both teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you were to just describe it for one reason in general, why would you say that it is the way that you guys are describing this as a disappointment? Is it the players? Is it the coaches? Is it front office?
I think it's probably both the coaches and the players. I think we have the youngest team in the league or something like that. And also it's a completely new coaching staff, so there's obviously going to be some road bumps along the way. And then you combine that with having the youngest team in the league, it's didn't really translate that well into a winning season.
There's also just some questionable decisions. We need to make a splash in free agency. It's just the fact that we think that with these young players that they can make star contributions so early in their careers. It's just not the expectations that we should be giving them. We need a veteran presence in the secondary. We cut Bless Austin before the season even started, and I thought that wasn't good because he was one of our best players in training camp. And we just need a veteran presence. We have that in the linebacker, in the linebackers. We have Mosley there, so he can help out. But we really don't. That's something that we're lacking, and I think that's something we should go after.
I completely agree with that. I think we should. The one decision I'm kind of pissed about is that they didn't keep Mike White in after Zach Wilson came back, because I wanted to see Mike White way more, because he's been in the league a couple of years, and aside from like the one game where he had 4 interceptions, what I've seen from him is pretty promising.
I personally saw Mike White play against Indianapolis when I was out in college just for that one game. He had a nice drive against the Colts, but then he got hurt, and then that's why that game pretty much turned into a blowout. Well, for that reason, and also Jonathan Taylor, of course, but that game in general, like, I did see good things out of Mike White before he got hurt. So I can definitely understand that, where it's like maybe you would have liked to see the rookie quarterback sit behind some wooded marinade for a little while and learn the system before you just throw him out there. So then that leads to a general question. What are your guys' opinions on, should you throw rookie quarterbacks into the fire? Should you not? Like, I feel like that's like a big question. Me personally, I think it depends on the situation.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends. It's just that, like, you want the quarterback to get experience, but you also don't want him to be, in such a bad situation that, like, he can never recover. Like Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
He was in such a bad situation in New York that he's not going to be able to recover from that. And as you can see in Carolina, he had the first few games of the year, he was great. But then what's happened since? He's starting to remember, what happened with the Jets. And I just, like, with Zach Wilson, I think there's really no other choice other than Mike White. You got Joe Flacco there, but I think he's there just as a mentor, pretty much.
I don't even know if Joe Flacco wants to be that much of a mentor. Like, I've heard some stuff saying that, and don't quote me on this and any of this, but I've heard some stuff that he just kind of wants to play, or he doesn't really want to mentor a young quarterback that much.
Okay, so to go on to a little bit more just positivity here, because I understand that sometimes it might be hard to be positive about this type of stuff. What are the biggest success stories in this team? Who do you think are this team's building blocks into?
Well, I would say Elijah Moore. He's been promising in the second half of the season. We really couldn't get anything going on offense, but he's kind of just led that role when Michael Carter's been out at running back for the last few games, coming back this past week. Michael Carter's been good.
Michael Carter was a
well, yeah, and then we got Michael Carter also in the secondary, who's been decent. Brandon Eccles has strung together like a few good games. But I think Elijah Vera-Tucker is a big building block for our offensive line. Even though the rest of the offensive line has been great, we have Mekhi Becton, who's been out the entire season. He's been that one guy just holding it down. He can move really fast for the position. He's strong. He could really just hold his own. I think if we can just build in the draft, I think that'll just help things out.
Mac, what do you think? Do you have anybody else you would like to add on?
I mean, I saw a good game out of Ashton Davis last week. Yeah. Who was the guy with the pick six?
Brandon Eccles.
Yeah, Brandon Eccles also had a good game against the Dolphins. I mean, there's definitely pieces there, but it's not clicking yet.
Okay, so I guess like what I'll ask you guys both next is, do you guys have like biggest disappointments? Anyone you think like needs to either step up, who hasn't stepped up?
Denzel Mims.
Yeah, Denzel Mims is just like the expectations we had for a second round wide receiver is we expect results, and especially him going into his second year, him already getting outplayed by Elijah Moore, who's a rookie. It's just kind of disappointing. Denzel Mims, he can't even stay on the field when he's when he's not injured, because he's just been that bad. And like, I think like Jets fans were kind of just talking about like how we should free Mims, like he's not getting on the field, like why is he not getting on the field? There's got to be a background reason behind that. It's got to be like he's not doing anything on the practice field. And also, he's dropping balls in the game, and he's not getting open. So like,
Yeah.
Something needs to change
It
there.
reminds me a lot of Stephen Hill in, what was it, like 2012?
Yeah,
I think
something like that.
something around that time. Stephen Hill, he had all the physical assets, but he couldn't get his head in the game. He couldn't catch balls. He was this freak of an athlete, but nothing. Something wasn't clicking. It seems like Denzel Mims is heading the same route.
It's like Stephen Hill. He's from Georgia Tech. They don't pass the ball in that offense. Like, why are you getting a wide receiver like who's from an offense that doesn't even pass the ball?
Yeah.
I just don't understand that. Even if he was good when they passed the ball, I think you go and target a guy. You know, I guarantee there were probably people after him that were much solid wide receivers drafted after him because he was drafted pretty damn early.
Personally, if you want to bring up one wide receiver who was drafted early, well, for starters, my dad actually wanted the Steelers to go get Denzel Mims, if you're unaware about that. But we ended up with, of course, Chase Claypool or Mapletron, as many people like to call him. But yeah, no, my dad was initially someone who was very, very high on Mims when he was coming out of the draft, at least. That was what he thought would be the right pick. But yeah, no, I personally, I'd like to see Mims turn it around, definitely, if that's the case. Do you guys think that Mims can turn it around? What's your guys' opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to show us something the last few weeks, because he's on a limited time table here. He's like, if he doesn't start to show something, like after this rookie contract's over, it's not gonna be next year. It's gonna be the year after. If he doesn't show anything, he's gonna be gone, and we're gonna be looking for other options.
I mean, if a rookie wide receiver is not showing anything in the rookie year, usually that's all right. But something's got to start clicking in the second year, especially if it's a first or second round draft pick like Mims was. If he's not showing anything after the second year, that's kind of a red flag.
Yeah, but also, would you consider Zach Wilson one of our biggest disappointments, or would you just, what would you consider it?
I don't think he's necessarily a disappointment, but I would like to see him be more accurate, especially on the short throws. I mean, outside of that, he wasn't given that many weapons. He wasn't given a whole lot of weapons to use. If you watch in that last Dolphins game, he was sacked a bunch, 3 times on one drive at one point. And then the defense can't help the offense at all. So I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of Zach Wilson.
No, I mean, the first 6 weeks or even half a season of a rookie's career, you shouldn't expect greatness right away unless you're like Justin Herbert or something like that. He needs time to develop, and a few weeks ago when he was throwing the ball behind receivers and stuff like that, I think he just needs to I think he's playing nervous. He just needs to get the cobwebs out of his head. He just needs to start being confident, and I think that's what's gonna bring him back for next year.
If you talk personally about the development that you guys need out of Zach Wilson, well, for starters, I would say no rookie quarterback should really be judged off of anything that they're doing, as a lot of them get better later into their careers. But when I look in the ideal situation for what you would want, is you'd want something just like what happened with your in-division foes, in Buffalo when it comes to Josh Allen, of course, who, if anybody does not remember, a lot of people are calling Josh Allen not really the best player going into the end of his rookie season. But I mean, he put in the work in the offseason, and they got him weapons like Diggs, and as a result, he was able to explode.
They built a team around him, and that's what I think we need to do next season in the offseason, is build some weapons and an offensive line, just so he can make that next step. Because Sam Darnold wasn't able to make that next step because we just kept giving him the same things. We just kept giving him, wide receivers who probably wouldn't even make the roster on some NFL teams to play.
Yeah.
It's just, we have to give him something to work with.
A lot of that transformation that happened with Allen inevitably also came down to Sean McDermott, the coach, who is clearly one of the better coaches in the NFL.
Right.
Sorry, Jets fans, for talking so much about Buffalo, but I feel like there's a lot of comparisons there.
Yeah.
But then the real question comes into your opinions on Rob Saleh, and do you think that he can take that individual jump, and how you like his work, and do you think that he can be that guy who can unlock Zach Wilson in hopefully a way that could compare to Josh Allen?
Yeah, I mean, he's like, you can't say too much. I mean, he's been a letdown for sure. But, I've always liked his attitude and just, the way he goes about things. But like, we're gonna keep him around, like, especially after this year, regardless of what happens. But like, we gotta see results next year with the new roster. And like, yeah, we just gotta see improvement. I mean, I know it's his first year being a head coach. Like, he's only been a defensive coordinator and some other assistant jobs at other, whatever, other NFL teams. But yeah, we gotta see just, improvement. What do you guys say, Matt?
Yeah, I like him a whole hell of a lot better than Adam Gase. But I guess it's been a little bit of a letdown in terms of the coaching. So there's some times in the games where you just see the players and they don't look inspired yet. With this new coaching staff, their motto is all gas, no brakes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not seeing that. So
Yeah, I mean, it's been all brakes, no gas.
So let's talk about the Miami Dolphins game last week. I mean, you guys jumped out to that 17-0 lead. I had the Jets plus 10 a.m. in Poolmeister. But so essentially, because I was thinking like Jets, Miami, they'll keep this game close. But at the end, you just weren't able to finish it off after what was kind of a lackluster second half. What were your guys' like overall takeaways or opinions from that game?
Yeah, I mean, the first half, had me, thinking, we're really improving, it'll be good to just have, finish off the season strong. But, the second half, the defense can get off the field, nothing going on offense. It just, I don't know, it just went back to just being worried again. And, yeah.
I mean, the second half, the Jets were outscored 21-7, so that kind of shows you where the defense was at. And if the defense can't get stops, and the offense isn't going to be able to get on the field.
Yeah,
so
yeah, we're talking about the Dolphins who had a lot of COVID issues.
yeah.
Jalen Waddle was out, and we let just the running backs just run all over us. And these are guys that are not even top 25 running backs. Like Myles Gaskin, he's been a letdown. It's just I don't know what happened to the run defense. The run defense was actually one of the positives last season, but now the run defense, we can't stop anybody. It's it's crazy.
Does the first half give you any sort of compensation when it comes to this, of you see the teams making strides in the way that they were able to blow out Miami in that first half?
Not really, because they couldn't finish the game. That's what matters.
But at least it's an improvement from the beginning of the season where we would just show absolutely nothing. It was actually the opposite, against the Titans. We were terrible in the first half, and then we came out in the second half. We just gotta develop and just find a way to just put it in all 4 quarters and just be able to, finish everything off. That's
play a
the problem.
60-minute game.
Yeah, right now we're just playing 30. Maybe we're playing 40 every once in a while, but it's just, if we can see that the next few games, then I might have a little bit of optimism for next year.
Let's go into next week's game a little bit. I mean, you guys played Jacksonville, and we all know the drama surrounding what is now Urban Meyer being fired, and what was clearly one of the worst coaching hires since Bobby Petrino. And on top of that, you get the hilarity of all the situations with the players in Jacksonville coming out and saying that they don't like Meyer, and you've Lawrence, who it looks like when it comes to Lawrence against Zach Wilson, that those two are both in not the best situations.
Right.
But Lawrence in particular, who had no help over the first half of the year. The only thing that I would point to with Jacksonville when it comes to the Jets and maybe a weakness with you guys discussing the run defense is James Robinson being re-energized after being allowed to play after Urban Meyer was fired and they let him back into the lineup. So I want your guys' opinions or takes about this week's game and how you think Lawrence, the new coach in Jacksonville, and James Robinson will possibly impact the course of the game.
Well, yeah, undoubtedly, James Robinson, he's a great talent. The Jaguars shouldn't have ever taken Travis Etienne in the first place because they had something going there. They needed to fill other holes. But regardless of that, Trevor Lawrence, he threw 4 picks in the other game. He's been up and down. But I just think it's going to be, just a garbage game to watch. It's just going to be, a tough game to watch. But, I think we can edge out a win. But it's going to be ugly. What do you think, Mac?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to... I think offensively it's going to be... I think the Jaguars are going to have a slight edge on offense, but I can't see it being an exciting game at all.
Yeah, the only thing we got going for us there is it's a home game, so I don't really expect to lose to the Jaguars at home, given that they just got beat pretty bad by the Texans, who we also beat. But that's also not how it works, The Jets can come out they can come out like the best team in the league on Sunday, or they can just come out, as the same old Jets. So, we just got to see.
Yeah, no, that game should actually be entertaining. I don't know who personally is going to win. I see that both teams kind of have their strengths and their weaknesses when it comes to their game plans that they can use against one another. You just got to hope that the Jets come out well and that, with the situation going on in Jacksonville, I feel like that can just change, anything pretty much. So let's move on to something else. Let's move on to a little bit of more just Jets future conversation. So the first thing that I'd like to mention is your guys' just opinions on last year's draft class.
Yeah, of course, Zach Wilson, earliest selection. We kind of just went over, what we thought about him and stuff, but, there's still some potential there. He's still really young. We're still going to try to build around him. Elijah Vera Tucker, I think he's been great. Definitely for a rookie. I've seen some things out there saying he's maybe even borderline Pro Bowl, but and that's great because that's the same thing happened for Mekhi Becton the year before when he was a rookie. They were saying this guy's borderline Pro Bowl. So if the next guy we draft, at tackle on the right side, if he's borderline Pro Bowl his rookie year,
you guys got three great linemen in that case. I can't relate over here being a Steelers fan, but hey. No, but
Mac, what do you think about Elijah Vera Tucker? You think he's been good?
I think he's been pretty solid. I think the problem with the offensive line is just injuries, just too inconsistent.
Yeah,
especially with Mekhi Becton. Is he out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think they might have just put him on the IR.
Yeah.
The offensive line really is a group effort. So, sometimes what happens to the O line as as a whole kind of makes him look bad.
Yeah.
So if he's doing whatever he can, to do well for this offensive line, it could just totally be destroyed by
one guy can't carry the entire line.
Yeah, but I think he's really been doing what we've asked of him, and I think that's all we need from him.
Yeah.
And then Elijah Moore as well. I'm not sure if you guys mentioned him yet, but I feel like you were mentioning he had a lot of touchdowns this year.
Yeah. Yes. Since week 9, I think he has the most touchdowns until the week he got hurt. Out of all wide receivers in the NFL, which is pretty crazy. But he's really took off in the second half of the season. I just think that, you know, the beginning of the season where we couldn't get anything going, we weren't getting him involved. I think getting him involved was one of the best decisions we've made this year. And I think he's really just a guy who's just really elusive, and he's going to make plays. He's going to get open. He's a great route runner, and he's super quick. I think that's just exactly what the Jets needed, and I'm glad that we drafted him. What do you say, Mac?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, he's definitely, even though he's a smaller guy, he's definitely got potential to be like a number one wide receiver. So I guess there's that to build off of.
Yeah.
And you have both Michael
Yeah,
Carters?
we have both Michael Carters. Yeah, it's not a typo. It is. There are two Michael Carters. If you didn't know.
They went to rival schools too. One
Yeah.
went to Duke, one went to North Carolina.
Yeah. Michael Carter, the running back. You know, he's been very solid, especially for a running back. He came out of college. In college, he averaged like 8 yards a rush. He was like crazy in college. He was a great player. I was so glad that we got him, you know, so late in the draft. We got him like 4th round. We didn't have a 3rd round pick this year. And I was like, how did he fall this far? This is a guy, you know, who made a lot of big plays, you know, in college. So, like, even though, like, he's just made the most of this bad offensive line, even though he's been averaging less than 4 yards a carry. That's mostly just based on the offensive line. And, you know, if the offensive line gets better, you know, he's going to improve even more.
And then, Mac, you have the two DBs, the second Michael Carter, and Brandon Eccles.
Yeah, Brandon Eccles was the one with the pick 6 last week, so that was awesome to see. He's definitely stepped it up. And then the other Michael Carter, he's been also really good in the secondary.
Yeah, Brandon Eccles, I think he had the highest PFF grade among rookie cornerbacks last week, which is pretty solid. Yeah, Michael Carter, he's been something that we can, you know, we might see a future with. And that makes me feel good because he was such a late round pick, along with Brandon Eccles, who's like a 6th round pick. I think that's really great.
No, that's definitely great. Those late round picks, if you can hit on those, you can do a lot, definitely. So the next question is team needs, because it's like you're going to go into next season with like certain players who it's like, you know, you're going to need certain positions and we're going to fill out this team. What are like your biggest needs that you guys would list?
Yeah, we would just say offensive line, corner, we need some help at. Definitely edge rushing, we're not getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Even getting a tight end or a center, like, it's just a lot, like, just getting the best player available would help, you know?
So then between that, which needs do you want to fill in the draft there?
Offensive line. You can't have a good team without an offensive line.
Yeah, that's, I would just say, like, we definitely got to get a tackle, maybe with our 4th. You know, get a guy like Evan Neal. That would be great. And then we could, like, maybe we get an edge rusher next. Or we can go earlier on and get Thibodeau, who's been insane. You know, we can get, like, you know, edge rusher and a tackle, and then we can go into the next round, maybe looking at a tight end.
The Jets do have 4 picks in the top 40, of course. Some of them being their own, and the others due to the Jamal Adams trade. Is there any other trade in there?
The Sam Darnold trade.
The Sam Darnold trade. Okay, then that is where I get that from.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are 4 picks in the top 40, so hopefully if you're able to hit on those, in an ideal world, you could be set up for a long time, because that's
Absolutely.
really, really big. So the next thing I guess we're going to discuss is you guys have a couple of free agents who you might want to bring them back, you might not want to. In particular, you have Marcus May, Jamison Crowder, Gerard Davis, Alex Lewis, Keaton Cole, Braxton Barrios, and Lauderdale Duvernay Tardif. Do you guys have any opinion on which of these guys you want back on the team, or which of them you think maybe should go find a new home? Or do you in particular want to bring a lot of them back, or just not very many of them back? Or what is your guys' plan for retaining your own free agents in your guys' eyes?
Yeah, well, Marcus May, you know, there were trade rumors about him earlier on.
I don't want to trade Marcus May. I want to keep him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of leaning more towards not keeping him though, which might seem a little crazy, but you know, he's gonna be due for a big contract,
Mm-hmm.
and if he's not gonna be able to stay on the field, he's not maybe a guy I want to keep around.
Mm-hmm.
True.
You know, if we could address that need, like if we don't bring him back, like I could maybe even see us drafting a safety, but like that's like we got Kyle Hamilton, who's like the #1 prospect at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
He's a do-it-all safety. Like if we don't bring him back, I could see us drafting a safety there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my #1 ideal thing because I want us to get offensive line and edge rushing, but you know, that might be an interesting take. Is just not wanting to pay Marcus May and just seeking cheaper options so we can fill other holes. You know.
How much would Marcus May ask for in particular? Are we talking like Jamal Adams money?
No.
No, not that high, but maybe something above what we want to pay for somebody who's
Like 10 maybe?
yeah, maybe a dozen mil, like something around there.
Yeah.
And that's really taking a chunk out of our cap.
That's definitely true. I mean, Justin Simmons and Jamal Adams, of course, just got paid when it comes to the elite safety market.
Right.
And then Minka Fitzpatrick after Marcus May will probably be the next one up. But in particular, that is an interesting conversation where it's like the team has so many holes, you might not want to invest so much money into a safety, where it's like, how much does he really provide if he's off the field a lot due to injuries?
Max. So let's move on to Jamison Crowley. You think we should keep him around?
I don't think we should bring back Jamison Crowder next year. I don't think I can see him in the future. He's getting up there in years. He's just not part of the Jets' future plans.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's gonna be a big cap hit if we bring him back. I just think it's something that we can find a better, younger option to fill that hole, whether it be in the draft or if it be in free agency. I just think there's better names out there. Not like saying what he's doing is that bad. He's one of the better receivers when we have some other receivers injured. So we just need to bring in a younger option, somebody who will be a part of the future, I think.
What do you guys think about Jarrod Davis in particular?
He was out all year. He was kind of just a one-year guy, that we would bring in there and just give us some depth at the position. And obviously he wasn't able to provide that because he went down with an injury. What are your thoughts, Mac?
He's got to go. He's got to get out.
Yeah, he's got to. It's time for him to go.
You just think that because of the injury and the fact that
it's not fair for us to give him a second chance when there's other guys on the roster fighting for a position.
Yeah, there's better options.
That definitely makes sense. Okay, so the next guy I would like to bring up is Braxton Barrios. I mean, I feel like he was definitely someone who I feel like has made a lot of plays for the Jets over this year. Really good special teamer, really good wide receiver who definitely, I feel like, in my personal opinion, at least watching him, I feel like he should be in the future plans just because he's young and he's a really good special teamer, and I feel like he's getting a lot better as a receiver as year goes on.
Yeah.
What are your guys' opinion on
Braxton
Barrios?
Every time he's given an opportunity on offense, he's usually taking advantage, and usually on special teams, he's pretty solid when it comes to the kick and punt returns. So I think they should bring it back.
Absolutely. And he's going to be a guy. He's not going to be asking for a ton of money. He loves. You can tell he loves the organization. Regardless of the results that we've been able to display, he's just been a great team player. He reminds me of Cole Beasley in a way. He's just a guy who gets open. He can catch the ball, and he might be a Pro Bowl kick returner. By the time you might see this video, he might be selected. But this guy, he's a part of our future. I mean, he's only 26 years old. He was one of Sam Darnold's favorite targets. Now he's one of Zach Wilson's favorite targets. So he's definitely a guy who will build a good relationship with the quarterback, and that's like guys that we need on the roster.
Mac, what is your opinion on the importance of having great special teams players?
Well, they set up the drive for you if you get a shitty position. Am I allowed to curse on this?
I mean, we haven't really set that up, but
Yeah, you're fine.
All right, yeah. I mean, if you get a shitty position from a kick return, it's not gonna start the drive off well. But like Braxton Barrios, you see, he's giving it all on the kick returns, and he's only fair catching it when he really needs to. And then obviously with like that the kicking game, you need a kicker. If you don't have a kicker, you're missing extra points that could screw you over.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely essential. Because a lot of these kickers, veteran kickers, towards the end of their career, when they're still solid, they're going to different teams, such as, Graham Gano and guys, of his stature. Like, those are guys who are still solid at this point where we can use. And, like, having a guy who can nail 50-yarders and make every single extra point is critical.
if you want to talk about one player who's like that, I mean, like, you can go into, of course, my Steelers fandom with Chris Boswell and him just being super important to the team this year. But regardless, I feel like the Steelers always go out every single year and they try to target a couple dudes who are known as being great special teamers. And I feel like it would be great for the Jets to try to go out there and do the same.
Definitely.
So the next question that I have to ask is about another wide receiver in the team, who is Keelan Cole. What do you guys think about him, and especially with the fact that you have the 3 young receivers in Elijah Moore and hopefully Braxton Barrios, and then maybe Denzel Mims. What do you guys think about Keelan Cole? Is he the odd guy out?
He's got to prove himself more. He's been too inconsistent. Like, he's shown flashes, but he's too inconsistent.
Yeah, he's really got to, like, show something these next, 2 weeks. If he can't show anything, if he just gets 1 reception and he doesn't even get targeted, then why are we even, like, thinking about that? Let's see. Lauren Duvernay-Tardif, that's another signing. Other guy that we brought in, via trade. Do you think, Mac, that we should bring in this guard, or do you think we should just let him go?
We should just, other than Elijah Veritaco, we should blow up the offensive line.
Yeah.
There's no point.
Yeah, and also Mekhi Becton.
Yeah, but he hasn't. Yeah.
He might ask for a decent price tag. He's a guy who's pretty solid. He's on the Chiefs O-line. But like he's not a guy like that we can see, in our future. We're looking for guys that'll be with us for the next 3, 4, 5 years. This is a guy who's been pretty solid with us through his few games with us, but I don't think he's shined enough to give us that
Second contract.
Yeah, give us the second contract.
So the next question, of course, we're going to go into what is considered one of the more fun parts of free agency, which is stealing other teams' players, of course. That's like the fun part of it. So, of course, the number one guy in the market for, I'm pretty sure should be all 32 NFL teams, is the cornerback out of New England, J.C. Jackson, who has just been downright incredible this year. I mean, like, he's second in the league in interceptions, and personally, I think any of the 32 teams in the league would love to have him. What are your opinions about the Jets trying to bring him in?
Yeah, that would be a dream signing. Taking him from a rival team, from a lot of teams' rival team is the Patriots. So I just think that it would be, a great signing to bring in a guy who makes big plays and will, give the offense momentum through his big plays, whether it be interceptions, forced fumbles, just something like that. We just need somebody to give the defense a spark, and I really think it could be J.C. Jackson, bringing him in with all the cap room that we have. We shouldn't be afraid to spend big on a guy who will totally transform the defense.
Okay, so there are also a couple of young cornerbacks who you guys might possibly want to consider bringing in. You've Mike Hughes from Kansas City and Carlton Davis from Tampa Bay. I mean, Davis, of course, with Super Bowl experience last year. Would you like to talk about your opinions on those players? Mac?
I mean, it would be decent to bring in some players, especially on the defensive side, who have had some experience leading the young secondary that we have. Yeah, that's all I've really got to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, both of them, they're on successful football teams. They know what breeds a great football team, and
winning culture.
Yeah, they know the winning culture, and also they're still young, and they've shown, even though the Chiefs' defense, hasn't been great this year, like maybe as of late they've been pretty good. They've stepped up, but he's one of those guys who stay consistent the entire season, and that's what we want to see. We want to see a guy through adversity. If the Jets are losing, he's not going to go down in form. He's just going to stay a solid player. A guy who's just going to give it all. That would be Mike Hughes. Carlton Davis, who's been pretty solid this year. He was really great the year before. But now, he has experience, playoff experience, Super Bowl experience. It's definitely a good culture guy you could bring in, as well as a good building piece.
Another conversation would be about, personally, one of my favorite players in the league, who I don't think will be rejoining Pittsburgh next year in free agency. But that would be wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster. Although he is controversial a little bit in the modern day NFL landscape with TikTok and all of that, you could discuss the fact about how he plays the wide receiver position with a level of physicality and how great he is in the slot, and the fact that his hands are like glue pretty much. So I think that Juju Smith-Schuster might fit in with the Jets culture, definitely. What would be your opinion on going out and trying to sign Smith-Schuster next year?
Yeah, that would be a fantastic signing. Even though, what's happened with him, off the field and stuff like that, that still doesn't take away from the type of player he is. He's a great, he can get open. He always catches the ball. There's never any problem with that. He's still, he's an elite wide receiver. I mean, when Antonio Brown's last year with the Steelers, he might have been better than Antonio Brown.
True. They also misuse him like crazy. They don't throw the ball deep to him anymore, which I think is somewhat of a problem with the offensive line, but also Roethlisberger and his inability to throw the deep ball, where it's like his first couple of years he was an elite downfield threat. I don't think that skill has ever escaped him. I just feel like he's played a more minuscule role. Well, if you were to send him to New York, he'd probably be the immediate number one.
Exactly.
And you'd be talking about probably a player who could definitely go downfield to make those downfield catches, but also just be elite in the slot position.
Even if it's not the Jets, I feel like it would be good for him at this point in his career to go to a team where he is the top guy.
Or I could see him go to a team where he is the second guy, but it's with an elite level quarterback who will get him the ball. Like Kansas City would be a great place for him.
Or even LA Rams. That might be a good one.
That's I think him and Cooper Kupp kind of play similarly, but I wouldn't go as well as that. My second team would be the Ravens,
right.
But that's more of another number one. You have him and Lamar Jackson. Of course, that would break my heart to see Juju go to the Ravens, but I have to sit up here and discuss it. So the other question is Mike Williams out of the Chargers, of course. Mac, you have any opinions on him?
I'd still rather Juju Smith-Schuster, but it would still be good to get another veteran. He's a veteran, right?
Yeah, he's
it'd be good. Yeah, it'd be good to get another guy with experience in there, because I feel like we have some decent receivers, but they're all just really young right now, and they need that kind of veteran presence in there.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Williams, the first few years of his career, it took a little while for him to get started, but he's really broken out this season. Maybe the last few weeks haven't been the greatest for him. I mean, he's been dealing with some minor injuries, but he could be someone who could really break out for us if given that number one, number two role, which he will probably be given if he becomes a New York Jet.
And of course, he has Justin Herbert out there who can just sling the ball like crazy wherever he wants to throw it. So the last question is, what are your guys' projections for next year? Like, what do you guys think the record will be about? Mac, would you like to start?
I would say high balling it would be 9 wins, low ball would be 6 wins, somewhere in there, that range.
Yeah, I would say lowest 5, highest, 9. I don't think it'll completely bust, just because I have a little bit of faith in Zach Wilson to make that next step, and also some faith in our GM, Joe Douglas, to just, go out there and make a splash in free agency, and also just to build through this draft, which we have so many picks in.
Mac, what do you think?
For next year or for the
Next year, what do you think?
Well, I said 6 to 8 wins.
Oh yeah, that would make sense. So I guess I'll give you guys this from a more biased view. So for starters, I think that the floor is probably about 3 wins, and that would be like everything goes wrong and Zach Wilson does not develop. Unlike Ryan, I do see the potential that could happen, in which a couple of the free agency signings flame out, and Zach Wilson does not take that next step, in which case I think it could be another year like last year. But at the same point in time, I wouldn't be personally surprised if the ceiling is somewhere around 9 wins, and you could have a season like Miami had 2 years ago, where going into the final 2 weeks of the season, you're possibly discussing playoffs, even though that seems like somewhat of a stretch with the dominance of the AFC this year. I think that you could maybe next year be discussing something along those lines, where it's definitely possible where you could go down the last 2 weeks of the season, you'd be like, this team could maybe make the playoffs. And then at that point, even if they don't make it, which they probably will not, you're talking about like a team where they're definitely trending upwards and people can see that. So I think next year is definitely critical for this team, where if it doesn't go right, you're probably starting to look at Wilson and Salah, the 2 head men there, and like starting to reconsider maybe even going into another rebuild. But if it all goes correctly, then at that point you're definitely talking about a team that's on the uprise.
This offseason is one of the most crucial ones we've had yet. We like to look at every offseason as, being crucial, but I feel like this one, given with the cap room that you have and the amount of draft picks you have to take advantage of what you have, and you can't be another bust year, or else we're going to be looking at another 10 years of misery as Jets fans.
That definitely makes sense. So with that, I just wanted to state that, first of all, we loved having our good friend Mac Earn here on the show. But with that being the case, we want to discuss that we would like to pretty much have anyone who's viewing this on the show. All you need to do is go into our Instagram, which is @ForTheFansPodcast_. And with that, you can go in and you can fill out a small survey that we have under our highlights, which I think it's 3 simple questions. It's your name, your email, and like what teams you want to cover, whether it's your favorite team or another team, or whatever you pretty much want to come on here and talk about it. We would love to have you. And then the second thing that's in mind is we would love for you guys to subscribe, of course, to this channel, as this is really the beginning of our journey. And with that being the case, like, we love having people on. We love being able to share our opinions about sports whenever we can. And that's super important, because it's just like, we're starting out and we are like super enthusiastic about this. And from the bottom of our hearts, we love you guys. We're able to sit down here and watch our videos and really sit down and listen to us and care about what we have to say. I mean, me and Ryan can both speak to this. We've been talking about sports with each other since we were like 3 at this point.
Right.
And so it pretty much seems like at this point that we're super happy that we're able to go on here and talk about it in front of a big audience. So we would like for that to continue.
Absolutely.
With that in mind, I'd like to thank my good friend over here, Mac Earn, for being on this show. I would also like to say thank you to my colleague, Ryan Patterson. And this is Brody McGowan signing off. But before we sign off, I want to do one more thing, which is I'm going to lead something right now. J-E-T-S, Jets, Jets, Jets. Thank you for having us. This is Brody McGowan, Ryan Patterson, and Mac Earn.